Order, honourable members. I now recognise to proceed with this debate the Honourable the Premier of the province of Limpopo.
Is it on? Is it on?
Can we please assist with the microphone there at the podium?
Oh, no. Is it fine? Okay. House Chair, Mr. President, Honorable Deputy President, esteemed members of this joint sitting and fellow South Africans, today I rise with both gratitude and determination as we reflect on the state of our nation. First, we honor the brave soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Amongst them, 8 were from Limpopo. We extend our deepest condolences to their families and pledge to uphold the values they fought for: stability, security, and better Africa for all. As I stand before you, Mr. President, I'm reminded of a marula tree whose fruit is now in season across our province. Its branches bend downwards, inviting us to reach up and partake in its nourishment, which has health benefits. This is the essence of leadership. We must extend opportunities to those below while ensuring that everyone benefits from our shared resources, and I mean everyone. Limpopo is poised to be at the heart of South Africa's global engagement, hosting key G20 meetings on agriculture, financial architect, the digital economy, and health. This positions our province as a driver of sustainable development. Our Marula belt in Mopani, alongside 70% of Kruger National Park within Limpopo, will showcase our natural beauty and rich heritage to the world. Mr. President, we welcome your decisive focus on water security. For years, our communities have struggled with water shortages. We appreciate your recognition that many rural municipalities lack the financial and technical capacity to ensure sustainable water supply. We have already, as a province, engaged the Department of Water and Sanitation to find practical solutions, particularly in Polokwane municipality, where water and infrastructure challenges persist. We have established what we call our Premier's Water War Room, which brings all role players together. Hinwamati Friday campaign has already started to yield results, wherein, Mr. President, 16 villages already in Guyana have started to drink water. Our Executive Council is finalizing a water provision strategy to ensure that every municipality can meet both economic and social needs in alignment with your intervention. Reducing the cost of living in rural areas is key to unlocking economic growth. Your 940 billion infrastructure investment plan is a game changer. For too long, apartheid spatial planning left rural communities disconnected from economic opportunities. This investment will reshape our province, connecting people to jobs, to markets and essential services. The public-private partnership that you have spoken about are proving to be effective. The near completion of the steel port bridge in Sekhukhune, which is built in collaboration with the mining sector around Sekhukhune, is a testament to what we can achieve when government and business work together. We will invite you to officially hand over to the people of Sekhukhune. When we met with you and your cabinet in November 2024, you committed your ministers to support and work with us, and therefore Minister of Electricity has been hard at work with us. We are pleased that in April 2025, Just hardly 4 months since your commitment, we will be inviting you to switch on electricity for 400 households in Madimbo and Mavete. These are the last villages in our country just before you enter Zimbabwe in the Musina municipality. Of the grid powered by solar and battery storage. Not only that, with 5G connectivity and street lights in the dusty streets of Madimbo. On average, Mr. President, one household has between 7 and 15 individuals. Therefore, you will be connecting not less than 4,000 individuals. The 120 billion pledge at our 2024 investment conference is materializing. Mining companies in the Fitahomu, Tubatsi are pioneering the solar energy projects, while the first 6 solar-powered electric vehicle charging stations along the N1 and 7 more on the N11 are coming online soon. So, Mshavi, you can buy that electric car, you will have charge stations on your way to Sishiro. The Fitahomu Tubatsi Industrial Park, it's gaining momentum, attracting investors. Companies are now operational, creating jobs and driving industrialization. So the full optimization of SEZ will be transformative. Hence, we cannot wait for that license. We are not waiting for the opportunities, Mr. President. We are creating them in that rural province of Limpopo. Healthcare, Mr. President, is a pillar to our development agenda. The long overdue revitalization of Siloam Hospital is finally happening under your leadership. We must remind Honorable Klope that sorting was done in 2011. And guess who was the president? Guess who is building it now? So is the Limpopo Central Hospital. We welcome it because it's currently under construction, which only started during your 6th administration. A capable state starts with skilled people. We welcome the initiative to capacitate our TVET colleges. This is in line with the directive you gave during the visit in Sekhukhune to the Minister of Higher Education to work with the provincial government to establish the Sekhukhune Mining Academy, because you understood better, contrary to what Honorable Chirwa's rhetoric, whenever given an opportunity to address this august house, that not every learner is a candidate for university. We must confirm to you that both local communities and royal families have endorsed this project, which will equip our youth with skills to thrive in the sector. We have already begun engagement with Minister and other potential partners on this project. And at the right time, we will give you feedback, Mr. President. So education is the foundation of economic empowerment and must ensure that Limpopo's youth are prepared for the job. Limpopo is no longer at the tail end of matric results. We have moved from being permanent residents of number last to 6th national, achieving a whooping 85.01% pass rate. Our goal is clear. We are aiming even higher in 2025. We have seen that Western Cape is number 5. They must watch the space. They are our target. We are also in the final stages of eradicating pit latrines in our school, ensuring that no child suffers the fate of the young Michael Komape again. Honorable Mukwena, you were misled about the ECD of our target, which was 130. To date, we have already registered 115, with the outstanding being 15. And since this function was shifted from social development, we have already registered 385. Our housing provision is also on the positive trajectory. Of the 4,555 units target, we have already completed 4,469, including 54 of military veterans. And this performance led into us receiving an additional 500 million allocation for 23-24, 24-25. And I'm sure it's coming from the DA-led Western Cape, which has failed to spend this money. Our commitment to a capable, ethical, and development state is unwavering. Mr. President, fellow leaders, let us extend our branch like a marula tree to uplift those in need. Let me remind Honorable Ndlela as I conclude that this government is committed towards fighting gender-based violence. That is why you see us, anyone who impregnate a child, any man who unzip on a child, it's currently being prosecuted. But we have a message from the women in Mpumalanga to you, to pass to your Deputy President, that women in Mpumalanga says, invite us during the day, not at night, because that will be harassment, and we will report it as sexual harassment. Charity begins at home. Thank you.
Honorable Premier. Honorable members, the next speaker is the Honorable Badenhorst. Order, honorable members.
Honorable Chair, Mr. President, fellow South Africans, to create jobs and grow the economy, our people need to get to work. Because when you move people and goods, you move money. Sadly, the lucky few with jobs are spending nearly 60% of their earnings on transport and electricity alone. Mr. President, on the 12th of September last year, you stood in the National Council of Provinces and you spoke about raising your gaze to interprovincial rail travel. You envisioned Johannesburg to eThekwini. You called it a major commuter artery. You also mentioned the Johannesburg to Messina route. Remember Tanswalo, Mr. President? She was so excited when you announced those plans. She was overjoyed because she was hoping to take the Xhosa mail with her family on a holiday in December to Durban with the newly cleaned beaches there. But then, on 3 October, Mr. President, PRASA dashed her hopes. 3 of its 4 long-distance routes suspended indefinitely, including the ones you promised. No train, no trip, no holiday. And with skyrocketing transport costs, Tanswalo had to stay at home in Johannesburg with no water, not even water for her swimming pool. Poor Tanswalo has become yet another victim of the effects of state capture. Those 9 long lost and wasted years, presided over by the Zuma government, rendering rail transport in South Africa all but dysfunctional. The numbers don't lie. In 1998-99, there were 42.28 million passenger trips per month. For the 2023-24 financial year, there was a total of 39.4 million passenger trips. Why the decline? We all saw the evidence at the Zondo Commission. Transnet was by far the biggest site of state capture. Some 41 billion rand in irregular contracts were awarded to Gupta-linked companies. Yet, instead of sitting in jail, some of the Transnet theft enablers are sitting right here in Parliament. Some of them are trying to hide behind camouflage some of the time, but we see them and we know who they are. Meanwhile, our debt to GDP ratio climbs at an alarming rate. In fact, South African taxpayers currently spend a staggering 300 billion rand per year on debt service costs. The main reason, over the last decade, is that taxpayers had to fork out 500 billion rand in bailouts for failing state-owned entities. Mr. President, the Democratic Alliance, your biggest GNU partner, shares your vision of growing the economy and jobs through an effective rail system. But we will not support Transnet's request for another 50 billion rand bailout. As a governing partner, we take our role seriously. We joined the GNU to address the multitude of challenges left by years of incompetence. We joined the GNU to promote stability and collaboration. We joined the GNU to prevent a coalition of breakers, their behavior on display for the whole of South Africa to witness over the past few days in this House. But, Mr. President, we did not join the GNU to rubber stamp ANC mistakes. Here's a reality check. Transnet is a train smash in slow motion. It owes 140 billion rand in loans and can barely cover interest and maintenance of current earnings, let alone upgrading infrastructure. And pretending, Mr. President, that private operators can somehow thrive on a collapsing network is pure wishful thinking. Throwing more money at Transnet is like throwing water on a person busy drowning. What we need is rehabilitation. What we need is real reform. What we need, Mr. President, is for you to be a statesman, putting South Africa first. Just like South Africa needs ministers that lead the change we want to see, like the DA ministers in the Government of National Unity, bringing the type of change you can boast about in your SONA address. For example, modernizing the agricultural sector, large-scale agricultural exports to markets that have been closed for many years, hemp and cannabis to exports to follow, digital transformation at Home Affairs, eliminating backlogs at lightning speed, turning South Africa into a construction site of public works, 940 billion rand in infrastructure investments to come. The list goes on. With regards to Transnet, this is what we must do together. Break up Transnet's monopoly and allow private sector investment to restore rail efficiency. Empower and fund competent cities and provinces to run locally focused services that suit their specific economic and social needs. The recently signed service level plan between PRASA and the DA-run City of Cape Town is a step in the right direction. Provide policy certainty so investors know where they stand. Ensure that the next injection of funds into Transnet comes from the private sector, not the taxpayers. What we need, Mr. President, is to get our country moving as economically and as fast as possible so we can move more money to grow our economy and create jobs. Mr. President, it seems that we are all on the same page with regards to what needs to happen. What we really hope you also agree is that this needs to happen now. Thank you.
The Honourable Mahlaude.
Honourable President, this year marks the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter. Only through its full implementation can we claim to have lived up to the ideals of a free, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous society. The 1994 democratic breakthrough was the realization of the call that the people shall govern. 30 years later, our generational mission is to realize the clause that says the people shall share in the country's wealth. We are still struggling to correct the historic injustice of apartheid with the persistent challenges of poverty, inequality, unemployment, and historic economic exclusion. The South African economy was built on the back of mining, energy, and agriculture. It relied on the super exploitation of black migrant workers and black women whose job was to reproduce children as future laborers and take care of dying men who could no longer work. It is treasonous that some beneficiaries of this crime against humanity have been calling on foreign states to intervene to block even the moderate reforms our government seeks to implement. We must enable our mining industry, which the ANC sees as a sunrise industry, to flourish and not leave anyone behind. To ensure that mining flourishes, the Council for Geoscience surveyed the country and found significant mineral resources yet to be exploited. It is a pity that some honorable members, even those in the GNU, have no experience in building an inclusive economy that works for all. One political party is stuck in state capture, another one in a vault in VBS in Venda, another in 1948, daydreaming about being called Bas again. We must ensure that the next gold belt, which could be bigger than the original one on the reef, is mined to benefit all sections of South African population. Our national endowments must fund the NHI and the reforms in the education sector called for by the Bella Act. We must use the rare earth minerals, steel, copper, hydrocarbon reserves, and platinum group metals, among others, to ensure that no section of our society gets to live like the biblical Lazarus and survive on crumbs, which is what the likes of the racist AfriForum and Solidarity yearn for. Mr. President, Honorable Mantashe demonstrated the practicality of how we must respond to bullies. When he said, "We are not beggars, we must stop acting like beggars." We need to ensure that mining charter is implemented. The state must have a carry stake in new mining projects, as is the case in petroleum, to fund the Sovereign Wealth Fund and other empowerment funds for the economic development of our country. We must consider significantly increasing exploration funding, which enables the development of new mining and hydrocarbon opportunities. The creation of a state mining company and state national petroleum company must occur through merging state assets in the mining and petroleum sectors. An industrial strategy is required to drive the growth of mining and hydrocarbon development. Our monopolistic finance sector must fund the industrialization of our economy so we can create well-paying jobs and transform our society. Now, before the DA experienced blue light, they were as treasonous as the racist AfriForum and Solidarity in lobbying and misinforming Washington on what is happening in South Africa. They even wrote a letter to Washington claiming that our well-respected IEC was going to rig elections and Americans themselves must come and observe our democratic elections. Well, the less said about those who are calling for drums when IEC is counting votes, the better. They must stop scoring cheap political points by misinforming the world. They are now lined up like headless chicken to move around the country, to move around the world to correct the lies, because they themselves understand very well that the withdrawal of foreign aid can be detrimental and harm their NGOs, especially Solidarity and AfriForum. The consequences are actually dire than what Donald Trump can comprehend. Don't try and run your own chicken cabinet, GA. Cabinet is one and can only be constituted by the President of the Republic, irrespective of a political party you belong to. Now, Mr. President, foreign aid is important, but money won't create successes. The freedom to make that money will make us successful. We have a nation to build, and those who do not want to be part of the nation building must heed the call of their Messiah and go to America and become Amerikaners and speak Afrikaners. President, you must also volunteer your jet in Kwazi to fast-track this important call by Donald Trump for the departure of those who want to leave the country. Thank you very much.
Honorable Gericke.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings, President Julius Malema, all the commissars and fighters and colleagues. Voorzitter, die EFF neem kennis van president Ramaphosa se verwysing in sy SONA-toespraak oor die uitdagings en probleme met betrekking tot dienslewering in Suid-Afrika. Maar die blote verwysing daarna is nie 'n waarborg dat daar nie 'n herhaling van korrupsie, vervalle infrastruktuur en swak dienslewering sal wees nie. Inteendeel, die land het al dieselfde beloftes jaar in en jaar uit gehoor. Dit is 'n gemeene saak dat plaaslike regering die eerste punt van kontak is vir die publiek. Artikel 152 van die grondwet stipel baie duidelik uit die doel en funksie van plaaslike regering. En dienslewering word gedefinieer as die lewering van basiese en essensiële dienste aan die burgers van ons land. Dit spyt my egter om u mee te deel dat u regering vir die laaste 30 jaar onbevoeg was om effektiewe basiese dienste te lewer. Daar is 'n landwyse verval van kwaliteitsdienste en baie gemeenskappe word nadelig beïnvloed hierdeur. Dit is hoofsaaklik toe te
Order,
skryf.
honorable members. Honorable Gericke, my apologies. Honorable members, please keep the noise levels down. Honorable Gericke also has a right to be heard.
Dit is hoofsaaklik toe te skryf aan korrupsie, nepotisme, begunstiging en die aanstelling van onbevoegde politieke bondgenote. Daarom ontwyk die idee van 'n bekwame ontwikkelingsstaat wat armoede, werkloosheid en ongelykheid moet uitwis ons land. Baie gemeenskappe het nie toegang tot basiese dienste nie. Dit is die uiterste vorm van vernedering as 'n gemeenskap soos Hammanskraal sukkel vir jare al om skoon water in hul huise te kry. Die gemeenskap van Tabazimbi en Mbombela en eThekwini gaan gebuk onder dieselfde probleem en bejaardes staan vir ure in die hittige son om net 'n paar liter water te kry, meneer die president. Die mense van die Karoo in die Weskaap is al moeg gesukkel om in baie gevalle verskoning. Die mense van die Karoo in die Weskaap is al moeg gesukkel en in baie gevalle steek verkose raadslede hulself weg om nie te verantwoord aan die gemeenskap nie. En so kan baie ander plekke genoem word. Water is 'n basiese reg. Die EFF doen 'n beroep op die nasionale regering om onbevoegde en korrupte amptenare en politici wat nie dienste kan voorsien nie, onmiddellik in die pak te steek. Die herstel van infrastruktuur om water te voorsien moet bespoedig word. Dit sluit die herstel van pype en infrastruktuur waar miljoene liters water gemors word ook in. Water apartheid in the Western Cape. A study of a group of Sweden, the Netherlands and the UK found that wealthy urban households use drinking water for swimming pools and gardens. Many disadvantaged communities are still struggling to have access to water. It is also reported that the elite makes up only 12.3% of the population, but use 50% of the city's water. Lower income households and informal settlements make up just over 40% and 21% of the population, but only use 27.3% of the city's water. Alhoewel artikel 26 van die grondwet die reg van toegang tot behuising waarborg, word hierdie reg op groot skaal ondermyn deur munisipale rade wat geen grond en infrastruktuur beskikbaar stel aan behoeftiges nie. Strukture in agterplase en plakkerskampe neem daagliks toe en kinders word in groot en onmenslike omstandighede. Dit gebeur in Suid-Afrika soos ons nou praat. Daar is 'n absolute onbevoegdheid in die meeste munisipaliteite en provinsiale werkgewers om menslike nedersettings te voorsien. Op die stadium met Kaapstad alleen 'n behuisingswaglys van 650.000 gesinne, a whopping 650,000 families. Maar Kaapstad is onlangs tot die beste stad in die wêreld verkies. Hoe belaglik is dit nie? Is dit the fools fooling the fools? Die EFF sê dat elke burger die reg tot 'n waardige bestaan en elke burger die reg tot toegang tot behuising en die staat moet alles in sy vermoë doen om daardie objektief te verwesenlik. In George waar die DA al vir jare regeer, word huishoudings se krag in groot getalle geblok. Mense wat veronderstel is om vir deernis te kwalifiseer, kry 50% minder krag omdat hul ouers se boedels glo nie afgehandel is nie en word hulle verplig om groot bedrae kontant te betaal om hul krag weer aan te sit, meneer die president. Dit geld ook vir werklose mense, shamefully so. Hoewel die EFF self daarop aandring dat burgers moet betaal vir dienste, moet voorsiening gemaak word vir die armes en die behoeftiges om toegang tot die gebruik van elektrisiteit te hê. Historiese skuld moet afgeskryf word en deernisregisters moet opgegradeer word. Paaie moet begaanbaar gemaak word.
Agbare Gericke, ek is jammer, maar die tyd is nou verstreke. Dr. Burke. Order.
Bullying. Bullying. There's been a lot of talk, Mr. President, about bullying. Having grown up liberal in a small conservative town, I know a thing or two about bullies. So it hurts me to say we are indeed being strong-armed. However, the bully is not across the sea. It is a ghost of budgets past. The consequences of our terrible decision to constantly borrow more for decades. And now we have a huge interest payment bill. Mr. President, I welcome much of your SONA speech. However, I do find it baffling that our national debt was not mentioned once. This year, for every 100 rand in tax revenue we're collecting, we're spending more than 20 rand on interest payments. A number which is hard to understand intuitively, especially at scale. But if we divide it up into days, hours, minutes, and then seconds, our debt is costing us over 13,000 rand every time your heart beats, Mr. Chair. Time is money and it's being wasted. The minute that I've now been speaking for is equivalent to roughly 800,000 rand in interest payments. Money that could have provided nearly 160,000 meals to our national school feeding scheme. Mr. Chair, our children aren't eating because our debt is eating us. It's consuming money from our stomachs, from our schools and our hospitals, from our futures. And Mr. Chair, like with any other bully, the only way we're going to escape this one is by growing bigger and stronger. Yes, we can cut money by cutting waste and efficiency, and by not funding ridiculous programs like the 3.5 billion rand we've penciled in for peacekeeping in Central Africa over the next 2 years. We've already financed one deadly and embarrassing military disaster in the Central African Republic under President Jacob Zuma, and we can't repeat this mistake. But we cannot win this fight simply by cutting. Let's put it this way. If you work overtime, but you find yourself thousands of rand short after buying groceries, paying rent, taxes, and interest on your massive credit card bill, then cancelling your Netflix is not going to help. Nor is pulling your child out of school the solution. And there is no way we can ask hard-working South Africans to pay more taxes. To escape our debt trap, we need better jobs, Mr. President. We need them now. And this is exactly why the DA is in government. We are the business-friendly party of economic growth. And I do not mean temporary jobs for votes. We all know the type. Those created by the next speaker, populist Premier Panyaza. We don't play games with the unemployed. And while tweet storms rage around us, and parts of the ANC continue to push policy that worsens racial divides, economic inequality and foreign relations, our ministers are not blown off course. We know that jobs remain our Southern Cross. Mr. Chair, there's another interrelated reason why we're in this GNU. As the emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. We have to ask, how much money would farmers feel comfortable spending on tractors last year if the Honourable Molefe was the Minister of Agriculture? And how do you think the Expropriation Act would be implemented if the Honourable Malema was the Public Works Minister? The DA puts in place competent people to run the government. Our DA ministers turned around Home Affairs quicker than most people could get a passport under Jacob Zuma. However, we will not solve our jobs or debt crisis alone. Our partners need to do more. We cannot speak with forked tongues, Mr. Speaker. saying with one side of our tongue that we want to grow the economy and employ more people, but also with the other part of our tongue that we are putting in place conditions on who can be employed and dictating how much of our products must be manufactured locally and then imposing knee-capping tariffs on those products for export. Starting a business is already an extremely risky and difficult process. Why is this government making it so much harder? We need jobs, not regulations. We also don't need bailouts dressed up as infrastructure investment. We know what you're up to. And as Ernest Hemingway wrote, one becomes bankrupt gradually and then suddenly. This country has been going bankrupt gradually with its ever-growing regulations and business-killing measures, as well as its ever-fattening debt burden. But if Transnet gets a 50 billion rand bailout that its chairperson is demanding, if Eskom continues to lose money and it wants another bailout, we will become bankrupt quite suddenly. We cannot be bullied into more bailouts, more debt, or more taxes. We must stand firm. We need to stop the debt. We need to start the jobs. We need our GNU partners to pull their weight. The DA cannot do this alone. The DA is not in the GNU to be an enabler to the drunk parts of the ANC. We need a Ministry of Finance that won't be bullied into more debt, more taxes, or more bailouts. Mr. Chair, I've been speaking for 6 minutes while allocated 7. I'll be giving back the equivalent of exactly R1 million in national interest payments to the House. Will our government do the same? Will they give back jobs to our people?
The next speaker is the Honourable the Premier of the province of Gauteng.
Thank you so much. Presiding officers, our Honourable President, Deputy President, Chief Whip, Chairpersons, Cabinet Ministers, leadership of other political parties, traditional leaders, honourable members. Honourable President, mine today is to say thank you. Thank you to you, President. It was exactly during this moment last year, President, that I humbly and politely requested you to sign the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. Like a true listening president, here we are. You signed the bill, and the bill is in force. President, like a true listening president, you gave those that has limitations a period to give you alternative ideas. Because they don't have ideas, they chose to march instead of giving you ideas, and you went ahead to implement. President, by signing the bill, you don't know what you have done. You have finally opened the doors of learning and culture to our children. And for that, we want to say thank you, President. President, they threatened you with legal action, but to date, dololo, because you can't take non-racialism to court and you can't take non-racialism to jail. President, it was during the last State of the Nation address when you boldly declared that whether you are young or old, whether you live in a rural area or a township, whether you are employed or unemployed, whether one is a security guard, petrol attendant, or a domestic worker, or an executive of a company, when you fall sick in our country, you are entitled to quality health care. Within that context, President, you went to sign the National Health Insurance Bill, and we want to say, siyabulela, President. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Again, you are threatened with legal action, but to date, dololo. because no one can challenge equity and no one can challenge access to quality health care for everyone. President, we also want to thank you. As the Gauteng government, we introduced a program called Ikageleng, Build for Yourself. Through this program, President, we offer land to those that are poor and homeless. We as government, we just install roads, sewer, water and electricity. People, depending on their pocket, build their own houses so that you don't have one-dimensional way of providing houses to our people. This program to date has benefited close to 15,000 people who are security guards, who are nurses, who are policemen, who can afford to be excluded in the housing program. And for this, President, we want to say thank you. Siyabonga. Mr. President, you convened a Gauteng conference, investment conference. In that conference, we as Gauteng scored 180 billion commitments in investment. And we want to thank you once more for ensuring that companies like BMW, which committed 4.2 billion, continue to expand their automotive production. Impact, which committed 2.5 billion, they continue to build sustainable packaging solutions. And we've also acquired another investment that we will announce during the State of our Province address. And this was possible through your actions. And we want to say, President, siyabulela. Thank you so much, President. President, we are now ready to expand Gautrain network to go to new areas in our province. Gautrain will now go to Soweto, Four Ways, Mamelodi, Atteridgeville, Lanseria, and Springs. And during this expansion in the next 5 years, the government that we have the honor to lead will produce 125,000 construction jobs in the next 5 years so that our people can get jobs. And for that, President, we say thank you so much, President. President, myself and the Premier of Limpopo, we have concluded our consultation to ensure that there is a speed train between Gauteng and Limpopo. We are now ready to consult. We are now ready to consult with the Ministry of Transport and your government, President, so that in 67 minutes we can have a train from Pretoria to Limpopo so that we can be in a position to provide the support to our people. Mr. President, our capital city of our country, Tshwane, is back from neglect and misrule. President, I was embarrassed when you hosted your BRICS peers and the capital city was stressed and it was dirty. And those that refused to listen to workers didn't listen to our plea to clean our city. You can come back now, President. Our city of Tshwane is sparkling clean now because those that didn't want have been removed. President, the city is moving away from qualified audits to better audits. And I want to assure you, President, the city is not only back, better and bolder, the city is ready to roll out the red carpet when you host your G20 peers in a province that will be clean and ready for you. President, a new Johannesburg is rising. Egoli, Mjipa, Johannesburg. Thanks, President. We have just unveiled the most beautiful planetarium in the Southern Hemisphere. It is in the middle of Johannesburg, and I want to thank the investment from Anglo-American and Wits University. This is the newest tourist attraction in Johannesburg, and I invite you, President, when you want to see stars one day with your family, come to Johannesburg CBD and see the best planetarium in Southern Hemisphere. A new, better and bolder concert venue, President, was unveiled 2 days ago. This is a venue that is in the middle of Johannesburg that will be capable of hosting international artists and ensuring that we entertain the people of Gauteng. President, when we reclaim Johannesburg, we mean that we are reclaiming it. We have now taken back 11 hijacked buildings in the middle of Johannesburg. We will convert them into proper housing for our people. For an example, the old Carlton Hotel will be converted into a beautiful apartment to house our people. And next week we are hosting a new Johannesburg summit as we then unveil a better and new Johannesburg. President, thank you once more. The e-tolls are gone, 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 and gone. Thanks to you, the Transport Ministry, the National Treasury and organs of civil society, our road infrastructure expansion and maintenance is now in full swing. We are ready to roll out modern infrastructure in our province. President, I want to leave here by introducing you to this student. His name is Musa Wenko Sibuteles, a student from township of Kwatema. He is the best matric student in our province. And when I say the best, President, I mean the best. He beat all students in Gauteng, whether in public or private education. And out of 1,800 marks, he got 1,700 marks. And in pure mathematics, out of 300, he got 299 marks. And is coming from the township to demonstrate that we have turned around township education. Of all the bachelor passes in Gauteng, 2/3 of them are coming from the township. President, tomorrow when you come here, I want to give you this advice. Standing alone here doesn't mean you are alone. It means you are strong enough to handle things yourself. Siyabonga, President. Thank you so much.
The entire progressive must stand up.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, honorable members. The next MP on the podium is Honorable Masango. Honorable Masango, the floor is yours. Thank you for the applause. Over to you, Honorable Masango.
Honorable Chairperson, this year's Honorable President's State of the Nation address was different. It was encouraging and inspired hope. That was not because he said anything new or because lives of poor and vulnerable South Africans have changed much, but because of the key players in what the Honorable President called the nation we want. Because the nation we want is underpinned by a vibrant growth and jobs agenda that will lift people of this country out of poverty. The players I refer to are the GNU ministers and deputy ministers. Several of the programs the Honorable President articulated were taken right out of the Democratic Alliance's election campaign over the years. The growth and jobs agenda. The high cost of living is an especially brutal reality for South Africa's poorest and most vulnerable citizens, many of whom receive their social grants from government and might struggle to access these grants at the end of this month due to the needlessly difficult switch from gold cards to black cards. The average South African worker has to spend more than 57% of their monthly income on transport and electricity while underspending on food. Last year alone, 1,457 children younger than 5 years died in South Africa's public hospitals due to acute malnutrition. But the DA has a solution. We have always focused on job security and the prosperity it brings. We want to grow the economy to lift the 28 million SASSA grant recipients out of their reliance on social assistance. Our economy policy will give them the dignity and the freedom that comes with a stable income and private property ownership. By enhancing the ease of doing business, between 350 and 400,000 new jobs could be created in the first full year after implementation. Fiscal policy reforms, such as a fiscal rule within the current expenditure framework, could create a further 350 to 450,000 jobs. Transforming the SRD grant into a job seekers grant is another essential brick in building an economy that attracts essential investment and fosters a labor-friendly environment that promotes job creation. In fact, between the DA's ease of doing business, fiscal labor, industrial and trade policies, there is a potential of between 1.9 and 2.5 million jobs over 5 years. And that, Honourable President, is a DA difference. This is why the Democratic Alliance joined the Government of National Unity, because the alternative is terrifying. Imagine a South Africa where the DA doesn't show up to hold the executive to account, where we are left to the mercy of the anti-constitutionalist agenda, where the government cares more about ideology than the money in your pocket, the roof over your head, and the job for you to go every morning. In order to grow the economy, we must involve as many of our citizens as possible, including those that are often marginalized. That's why the Honourable President's inclusion of persons with disabilities in the mainstream economy is very welcomed, and as it recognizes the value being added by them in the broader job creation and economic growth space. The DA's role as key coalition partner in the GNU is already moving the needle towards economic growth and its value for all South African citizens. The ingenuity and foresight to form the Government of National Unity is what South Africa desperately needed. And the unity in the GNU is what will ensure progress and prosperity. And as South Africans, we are excited to witness this most welcome change. We encourage the ministers, deputy ministers, and their dedicated teams to focus on their work as we stand ready to support them in whatever way possible. South Africans, especially the poor and vulnerable South Africans, deserve no less. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Masango. The next speaker on the floor is Honourable Brett.
Dankie, agbare huisvoorsitter. Agbare meneer die president, die Vryheidsfront Plus se leier, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, het gister tydens hierdie debat gesê dat Afrikaners, soos baie ander gemeenskappe in Suid-Afrika, geen ander tuiste as hier op die Suid-Afrikaanse bodem het nie en dat ons hier is om te bly, maar dat ons ook sal help om hierdie land van ons te herstel en te bou. En dit is juis in hierdie lig, meneer, wat ek graag met u wil praat. Amper 7 maande gelede, tydens die opening van die parlement vir die aanvang van die 7de termyn, het ek gevra dat munisipaliteite moet prioritiseer word. In many previous sonas, you briefly mentioned infrastructure, but it is for the first time in my recollection that you have actually acknowledged the struggles facing municipalities and consequently the challenges of those communities. I want to thank you for listening to the GNU partners. You also said, and I quote, "Many of the challenges in municipalities arise from the design of our local government system, and I cannot agree with you more. But we do not need another panel to undertake extensive consultation to find out what is wrong and what needs to be the alternative to our local government system." The late Mr. Pravin Gordhan, if you will recall, released way back when in 2014, a Back to Basics report with findings of what the Freedom Front Plus has always said, and that is big, multi-town municipalities do not work and services cannot reach the outer limits of those municipalities. Municipalities need to be smaller with less towns in them, and ideally it needs to be 1 town per municipality. And although it is welcomed that the role of the Public Services Commission will be strengthened and technical skills will be improved and professionally managed risk ring-fenced utilities and water and electricity services will be established, forgive me if I'm not jumping for joy, but waiting to see if this will be realized into real action. Ek het 7 maande gelede ook voor u gestaan en ek het versoek dat daar ingegryp word in onder andere Mokaka plaaslike munisipaliteit waar deur die wolwerke die belastingbetaler al 105 miljoen rand kos, maar steeds disfunksioneel is. Ek was opgewonde dat u en die adjunkminister van water en sanitasie, wat ek ongelukkig nie vandag hier raak sien nie, onderneem het om die aangeleentheid te ondersoek en te kom besoek. Maar tot en met vandag kon ek nog nie daarin slaag om die adjunkminister vir 'n besoek te ontvang nie. In Setsoto plaaslike munisipaliteit het die Markwaardamwal reeds voor die pandemie gekraak en uiteindelik gebreek, maar omdat die ratte van die regering gans te stadig draai en daar werklik nie proaktief opgetree kan word nie, maar ons geforseer word om reaktief op te tree, is dit nou meer as 5 jaar later nog steeds nie voltooi nie. En nou blykbaar wag ons vir 'n lisensie van die departement voordat die projek kan begin. Die Vrystaat is 'n waterskaars provinsie en kan nie bekostig om broodnodige water te vermors of nie op te gaar nie. And then I'm not even referring to the 475 million rand lost during the 22-23 financial year in municipalities in the Free State due to water losses and leaks. I refer to these examples in the Free State not only because I hail from the Free State, but because it's the worst performing municipality and alongside the Eastern Cape is one of the provinces with the most municipalities in distress as announced by Minister Hlabisa. The situation is so dire that after complaints, the South African Human Rights Commission announced and launched an official inquiry into the state of service delivery at local government level in the Free State, and not one municipality was in the clear. And I would like to quote, "It is clear to the Commission that there are severe failures as well as difficulties. These failures equate to violations of constitutional rights." Agbare huisvoorsitter, ons gaan moed skouer aan die wiel sit as ons Suid-Afrika wil herstel en bou. Ek dank u.
Thank you, Honorable Briet. The next member on the platform is Honorable Mashatsi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to the President and the Deputy President. Greetings to the Progressive Caucus. Kgotso ma-Afrika. Honorable Zigalala, you are absolutely right that Africans must report African issues to Africans. But let us ask ourselves, those who ran to Americans to cry about Expropriation Act, are they really Africans? Do they genuinely believe in African unity? The Americans gave them platform, gave them what they wanted, and yet they remain here, remain at the very land where they are privileged and they claim to be under threat. Where is Honorable Mackenzie's slogan now? Abahambe! Or does it only apply selectively? Mr. President, now that Expropriation Act is in law, I had expected you to outline a clear program of action for its implementation. We cannot afford to celebrate symbolic victories while our people continue to suffer. While we articulate policies, our people are starving. They have no land to produce food, no resources to sustain themselves, and no means to break free from generational poverty. The land question is not just history, it's about survival. Look at Palestine. The war waged by the so-called Israel, it's over the land. Look at the DRC. The conflict between the Tutsi and the Hutsi, it's about the land. And if South Africa reach the boiling point, it will not be about political debate. It will be about the land. So, Mr. President, it's time to act decisively. Implement the land expropriation without compensation now. We cannot wait indefinitely for the amendment of Section 25. We must abandon 1913 as a benchmark for the land reform because it legitimized the colonial theft. When the settlers arrived here, they didn't compensate the land from our forefathers. Instead, they killed them and took the land forcefully. So give us the good reason why we should give why the government must compensate them. Our history of this position did not just begin in 1913. It began the moment the foreign settlers laid claim to what was never theirs. And as UAT, we do not even recognize 1652. Because by that time, our forefathers were already enslaved. While we delay, our people remain landless, hungry, hopeless. Now it's time for action. No apologies. Yes, we don't apologize. Now it's time for justice. No endless negotiations. The land belongs to Africans. Implement now, Mr. President. Kadimambo.
The next speaker on the podium is Honorable Daniels. Over to you, sir.
Greetings, Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa, Deputy President, Speaker of the House, and all honorable members. On behalf of the Patriotic Alliance, we are excited by the prospects of a 3% GDP growth as mentioned by His Excellency Ramaphosa during SONA. We are excited that our beloved country will now be turned into a construction site. And that is what we need to address the high unemployment rate in our country. Mr. President, my grandmother always said, you must look at me when I talk to you. Mr. President, thank you for committing 940 billion rand to the infrastructure projects. Let job opportunities rain from our African sky. Let us guard against also evergreen contracts being afforded to the same companies for decades, including those of constructional engineers. Mr. President, adding 20 billion rand over 5 years to the Transformation Fund to support small and black-owned businesses is heaven sent. You said small and black. You didn't say small, you didn't say black. You said both small and black, Mr. President. Remember, the BBBEE speaks to African in particular. We also have white small-owned businesses. We equally have got colored and Indian and black small-owned businesses. And because you say it was small and black-owned, I trust that it will receive the attention it deserves. So that, Mr. President, the additional 20 billion can be implemented as a Rainbow Nation project benefiting black, white, Indian, and colored people. Mr. President, I must admit from what I've noticed, you are indeed a complete show-off. You cited sterling work done by various ministers within your cabinet. And you are correct, Mr. President. The GNU is working. As the head of state, you have all the reason to show off. Who will not show off when things are working? In the PA, ons kinder van jou, Mr. President. And I quote my party president, the Honorable Minister of Happiness, saying,
The scanner race stop net daar. Baie dankie. The next speaker on the program is Honorable Lonsi.
He said, you are a hard worker. You are a hard worker. He respects you. And you work so hard that you must have been tired when you didn't mention the work done by our president in your SONA debate.
Sit down.
But these people on my way out,
Sit down, Chief.
you can make a noise.
Sit down, Chief.
Thank you.
Speaker. Speaker.
I think we need a breathalyzer now.
Hey, Matata.
Over to you, Mr.
Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, South Africa is behind you, despite calls from the United States and Elon Musk, who are calling for your sanctions and calling you an international criminal. We want to remind you, President, that even Nelson Mandela was referred to as an international criminal, and only up until 2008 was he released from the terrorist list by the United States. Leaders like Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso were all labeled criminals by the West. Stand firm, President. Being a criminal of imperialist forces is a badge of honor for our struggle for the liberation of our people. President Ramaphosa, in the 20th century, Chairman Mao develops and popularizes a concept called a paper tiger. A paper tiger, President, is something that appears powerful and intimidating from a distance, but as you get closer to it, it's harmless, it's fragile, it's powerless. It's just a paper made of a tiger. Your State of the Nation address, President, like the 7 you gave before that, reminds us of a paper tiger. You always make bold statements. You appear dangerous from afar, but when we pay closer attention, we see a paper tiger. Your ministers and premiers are all praise singers, Mr. President. All of them did not engage in the substance of your SONA. They did not defend your SONA. They were just looking for your applause and affirmation. Your chief whip comes and speaks about the National Development Plan. Yet former President Thabo Mbeki, who all of you like to quote, keeps telling you, Mr. President, the NDP is not a plan. Why? A plan requires clear steps, time frames, measurable objectives, and defined responsibilities at each and every level of government. Now, President, let me take you to Singapore. When Singapore gains independence in 1965, they implement the Economic Development Plan, focusing on industrialization, education, and infrastructure. This was not just talk, Mr. President. They created a strong manufacturing sector, which we don't have, upskilled their workforce, which you are not doing, and invested in technological innovation, transforming Singapore into one of the world's leading economies in a short space of time. This can't be said about the National Development Front. Honorable Premier of Limpopo, please don't be narrow. When we say post-secondary education, we're not just talking about universities. We're talking about TVET colleges. We're talking about training centers. Come on, Minister. The Premier of the Northwest comes and talks about Tunchali Rura Accelerated Service Delivery Campaign. But what he won't tell you, Mr. President, is that where he launched his campaign in Mamusa, if you go to Mamusa today, Batuba Runa, Batula Masipa, Pekeli Peke, because his failed PR stunt couldn't resolve the issue of sewage in the province of Northwest. I don't want to even talk about the Minister of Human Settlements. She stands here and claims to have resolved the issue of student accommodation in South Africa. Perhaps she doesn't know, Minister, there's a shortage of over 500,000 beds in South Africa. You don't just resolve it by taking money from VPS and buying yourself a coffee shop. President, I want to invite you, just across the road, President, when you were busy delivering your sauna, students at CPUT were sleeping outside, President. On Monday night, I went to visit one of the students who were arrested. Please, President, on your way to your 20-bedroom house in Clifton, pass District 6 so that you can see this crisis with your own eyes. President, we felt the pain of Minister Sihle Zikalala. He's a master's candidate. Rather, he's got a master's. He's got experience in governance. But you have reduced him into a boy and deputy minister of an illiterate, matriculate white man. You are reminding us of the racist corporate sector where our brothers and sisters must account to white juniors, even though they've got better qualifications and better experience than them. But, Mr. President, we are not shaken because we know that the faction of Helen Zille wants to dump this GNU. It's just John Steenhuisen who is still enjoying blue lights, even at the cost of his own constituency. Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, we want to show you that we're not just an opposition that talks. We have already presented before this parliament a student debt cancellation bill. We want this parliament to vote for that bill so that we can resolve the debt confronting more than 500,000 students in South Africa. Now, Mr. President, I don't know why you need a bill to give all students their degrees, because these people have completed all their academic requirements. Why don't you give them their degrees?
Your time has expired.
We came here to ask you and you said
Your
we've got
time
an
is
extra
up.
minute for 6
Your time
minutes.
is up.
You gave me 5 minutes here. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We
Take your
asked
seat.
you and you said we've got an extra minute here. President,
Your time is up.
President, the simple point we're making,
Your time is
how
up.
will these
Your time
students
is up.
get employment if you don't want to give them their degrees? Give the students their degrees, give them their qualifications, give them their certificates so that they can be able to access employment opportunities. You don't need a bill for this. Release all degrees, Mr. President.
Leave the podium. Abba. You can't disrespect the presiding officer.
Thank you, honorable members. Will you please take your seat? What I want to do now is to bring to the attention of the House Rule 34. Rule 34 is very clear. What is very important is that we must maintain the decorum of the House. So I appeal to the House that as we move forward, we must respect the rules of the joint sitting. Because what is critical here is that, one, we cannot call each other by first name terms. We must respect each other according to Rule 34. So the next person who's going to be on the podium is Honorable Notata. Over to you, sir.
Somlomo malunga bekekileyo, fellow South Africans, molweni. Mr. President, the last time I was at this podium, I told you the ANC will not come back as a majority in government. And many in the ANC laughed it off. But the voters backed that statement to ensure that you are no longer a majority. The only thing left is for you to accept that fact. When the DA joined the government of national unity, it was because voters wanted us to leave behind the failed policies of the past 30 years that has plunged more and more people into poverty and unemployment, and begin the project to rescue the 30 million South Africans living below the poverty line, the 12 million unemployed South Africans, and to fight crime for the 87 people murdered daily, to stop cadres being appointed to eat while South Africans with merit are overlooked, to stop the tragic stories like Bonge Kabuso, who poisoned their last bit of food rather than watch her children starve because of the high cost of living, to stop the grand-scale theft and corruption that reached unprecedented levels during Zuma's 9 wasted years. Mongameli, bawuyakhumbula kakuhle phambi kwe-elections ndandithe kuni anibuye nangoku khanibuye qha kodwa into esasike sayenza kuninenzela inceba saninceda uba manibuye kurhulumente yenzela uba sizanugada ningabi imali abantu baseMzantsi Afrika sizosebenzisana kunye ubhekise lizwe phambili. We joined the GNU because we could not risk giving power to the MK and EFF. Their policies would tank the economy. They are the biggest threat to the poor. They have proven this with the dodgy characters in their benches who gave us load shedding, broke PRASA, and stole at grand scale, while the little red minions next door stole poor people's pensions and savings through the VBS Bank. Theirs is a path we must never take, and a path of breakers we must always avoid. They are now licking their lips. You could see them standing, lurking at the door of the GNU, wanting to eat. But sadly, for them, the DA is going nowhere, and they won't taste the levers of power. Because the project to build South Africa is far too important to hand over the power to these breakers. Singena nje kulo rhulumente sizogada lamasela namantshontsho ayo uba bangabi imali abantu baseMzantsi Afrika. The DA will help the GNU grow the economy to create jobs so as to lift people out of poverty. Our expertise have already proven that we've made tangible impact in people's lives. We have prioritized digitization and people are getting their IDs. The agricultural reforms will sustain the agriculture sector and create jobs and food security. Turning South Africa into a construction site is delivering the much-needed jobs, as you heard this morning. Mr. President, Minister Motsoaledi came here, and I want to say to you, sir, my mother died untimely at the hands of a failing public health system. And us fighting to protect medical aids and quality health care, regardless of your economic status, is to ensure that no one else must suffer the same fate. To the many South Africans failed by the public health system, this is not a political game. It is our lives on the line. That is why I strongly believe that the DA can bring helpful changes to the NHI to ensure universal access to quality health care. The thing that gives us stomach aches is the completely failed public health system that you oversee, where people go to public hospitals to go get help and they come back in coffins. And your intention to confiscate the medical aids to which millions of South Africans have contributed all their lives. What the ANC doesn't seem to understand is that millions of black South Africans have spent the last 30 years working to free their families from the broken public health system. And it's important for us to protect that right while making sure that more and more people get quality health care regardless of the economic status in South Africa. To be open to new ideas, build the economy and create jobs, you need to shift your attitude. You see, Mr. President, attitude is like a flat tire. If you don't change it, you won't go anywhere. Premier Lusufi, no amount of arrogance to implement failed ANC policies will change this country for the better. Just today, it was revealed that your government has stolen over 600 million meant for Gauteng NGOs who fight hunger, and this is over and above the fact that you spent over 400 million rand to fumigate schools, because what's most important for you is that cadres must eat while the people of Gauteng suffer at your own hands. What in fact we must be fumigating is the hollow words that you spoke here today, having delusions of grandeur, yet you've closed down 25 schools in Soweto, yet you talk about the doors of learning must be open. As if we could not be subjected to worse, the Honorable Dagmo chose to come here and insult the most successful premier in creating jobs. Honorable Dagmo, the unemployment rate and the ANC votes in the Western Cape went down directly proportional to each other. Whilst the Premier Windy was driving down unemployment rate and creating jobs in the Western Cape, you as the leader of the opposition were driving down the ANC votes. Clearly, Honorable Adams was correct to say you're the most skilled politician and you are indisputably the most skilled at losing votes. The less said about the Honorable Ndlela, who came here dressed like a toy soldier and fake military gear, forgetting that the MK family business has chance to created a failed state for 9 years.
Thank you, honorable members. We cannot drown the speaker, please.
As the DA,
we cannot drown the speaper. Honorable Notata, your time has
we are
expired.
committed to governmental of national unity.
Honorable
Take new
Notata.
ideas on board and you'll see success.
Mini,
Thank you.
sit down. Mini John stays in, sit down.
Thank you, House Chair. To say the facts honor delivered on the 6th of February was an anticlimax is a serious understatement. The party leader of the MK and myself, we went there with notebooks and pens hoping to take copious notes, but it was not to be. We thought Mr. Ramaphosa was going to start by giving an executive update on the progress made from his 2024 promises. Instead, he began pontificating about some 20 billion per year for transformation fund, and he carefully omitted to say where those funds would come from. As we speak here and now, South Africa is living from hand to mouth, and this leadership or people in the leadership position seem oblivious to this fact. Fellow South Africans, here are three very important realities. We have a widening fiscal deficit, now projected to exceed over 5% of the GDP. Where's the 20 billion going to come from? We are sitting with a growing national debt expected to exceed well over 80% of the GDP by 2026. Where's the 20 billion going to come from? Rising inflation and increased cost of living, forcing millions into deeper poverty, with poor households facing a disproportionate 11.3% increase in their food basket. We, as Umkhonto weSizwe, the new government in waiting, we stand on behalf of the people of South Africa. We stand on behalf of traditional leaders, the unemployed millions of our people, the underpaid and exploited workers, black professionals who suffer racist treatment in workplaces, farm workers, all those who need a better life in this country, including white people. We declare that Umkhonto weSizwe is a government in waiting ready to take over yesterday. I'm standing here today, amongst other things, to expose the lies. The MK party will not govern through lies and deceit. unlike the ANC-DA coalition and their fellow travelers in this coalition thing of theirs. We will not represent anything. We will not do what has been done here to misrepresent the Freedom Charter. We will state the Freedom Charter as it is. It is quite despicable that Mr. Ramaphosa comes and talks about the Freedom Charter, but there's not one thing from the Freedom Charter that he has ever done. The Freedom Charter says the mineral wealth beneath the soil, the banks, and monopoly industries shall be restored to the people. When we say this, they call us destroyers, they call us unconstitutional, and all these funny words. The Freedom Charter says the land shall be shared amongst those who work it. Our people work the land every day and are not having any share in the ownership. For us in the MK party, platitudes don't work. We see you. We will not falsely claim that there were 300 days without load shedding, when in reality it was disguised as load reduction, Comrade Putla. Maybe there was no load shedding in the suburbs where the neoliberals in the GNU live. But in the township, people are struggling with the so-called load reduction. We will not manipulate statistics, Minister Nchaveni, as we have in the 2022 census, where the nation has been given a false claim that 82% of households have piped water. But State SA does not say that in those pipes that are there, some of those pipes are dry. Some of those pipes are spewing water you cannot drink. So that statistic is meaningless. We are not going to lie about the land reform. The Expropriation Act that everybody is talking about is not a progressive document, but just a tool to delay land reform. The term nil compensation is deceitfully used to confuse many in the ANC because they get easily confused. It's not the same thing as no compensation, fundamental difference. The people of South Africa are fortunate that the MK party is here to expose these monkey tricks. We will not pretend that apartheid is a thing of the past. When you look at the household income, the race element is very strong. Africans in the top quintile are only 13.7%. Coloreds are only 20.3%. Indians, 40%. And the whites in the top quintile are occupying 73%. Is this what united in our diversity should mean? You would have thought that with a statistic like that we'll have a situation where Employment Equity Act is going to be prioritized. This act
sorry,
was passed.
Honorable Mani, just a minute. Please, honorable members who are conversing aloud in this house, can we allow the speaker on the podium to be able to address the house? Thank you.
It's MK.
Mr. Speaker.
On
Mr.
what are you
Speaker,
rising, honorable member? Can you take your seat?
Mr. Speaker.
On what are you rising?
Mr. Speaker, the Speaker is totally not audible. We can't hear him. There's something wrong with the sound system. So if you could please address that and allow him to begin his speech again, please. You can't hear him. That's why members are trying to raise this point. You can't hear the speakers. There's something wrong with the sound system.
The problem is not the sound system, it's the content.
Or is it a sabotage?
Session is saying nothing.
Sabotaging our
There's nothing wrong with the system.
We're starting afresh.
The problem is that Honorable Tutu Zuma did not approve that speech.
Chairperson, give him more time.
Honorable Mani.
The speech was not approved by Tutu Zuma. That's
The speech.
Please, let us have.
He needs to start again, Mr. Speaker. We can't hear a thing.
Thank you.
We don't want to hear a political. Let him start from the beginning, Chair. We didn't hear.
The technical team will up. We'll up the issue of the mic.
Nothing wrong. He's talking
There's
hogwash.
nothing wrong with the mic, Chairperson. It's the
We
content.
cannot even hear you, Speaker. We can't even hear you.
He's just talking
There's
hogwash.
nothing wrong with the sound. We can hear him.
Honorable Zagute.
Hello. There's nothing wrong with the sound. We can hear him.
We didn't ask you though.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable House Chairperson, thank you very much.
Over to you, Honorable Zagute.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. All speakers were audible. I want to advise Honorable Manyi to come closer to the mic because his voice is too soft. We can't hear what he's saying, but we've been hearing all the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable
Papa, we have the content. Hello, Papa, explain. Chairperson.
All right, you can
Only now when we rise and raise an objection, the audibility of the speaker is
You are killing the mic. Honorable member. Honorable member.
making a plea.
Honorable member.
The speech
You are
again.
downing the speaker. You are downing the speaker. Take your seat. Take your seat. You can only speak when I recognize.
This is not audible.
Please, take your
This
seat.
is not even audible, Chair.
Hello. Don't touch that mic. Why are you touching it?
You can
Don't
only
touch
speak.
it. The issue is the
Chair,
content,
we
not the
cannot
sound.
even hear you. We can't even hear you.
You are downing the speaker. Yourself.
One, T.
So, the mic is clearly audible. The sound is clearly audible. Honorable Manyi, can we resume your speech, please? We are having 2 minutes to go.
Give me time.
I've just made a ruling, Honorable Manyi. You have 2 minutes to go. All the other members were audible. They were supposed to go closer to the mic. Please.
He's used to acting in every part. This is not rehearsal and chaos.
Don't play to the gallery. Don't play to the gallery. Get on.
We can't even hear you, Chair.
Chair, we can hear him from here.
Chairperson, how much time am I adding? Are you adding? How much time are you adding?
Don't play to the
Because
gallery.
here is a technical problem. Confirm.
Now we can hear.
Uncle Kwete, Gasha, Uncle Kwete. Sit down, Uncle Kwete.
Niyaphela ixesha ngoku.
Gasha, Uncle
Niyaphela
Kwete.
ixesha.
Jimanyo in the house.
Time is up.
Papa Penny.
All right.
Papa Penny.
The time which is here is 2 minutes.
Time is up. Time is up.
Yeah, 4 minutes is fine.
Okay. Deal.
Mafiki solo.
Okay. One would have thought. Okay, here's another point of
Honorable
order.
Manyi, there's another point of order over there.
Honourable Chairperson, it is most certainly a point of order. If the Honourable Member at the podium is given an additional time allocation, we all want additional time allocation.
We can give you it's fine.
You have no authority to add on to his time. I listened to Honourable Manyi the whole time. I could hear what he was saying. And then they asked him to repeat his speech. You have no authority to add on to his time. If you give him more time, we want more time.
All right. Honorable Manyi.
Okay, thank you.
Manyi.
Thank you, Chair. You are in charge here.
I'm still have to make a ruling. Please take a seat. What is very important here is that a ruling has been made, and the ruling cannot be overruled in the House. I think what you are raising, the member from Action SA, please you can write to the relevant office so that you raise the issue. So the issue of drowning was part of the House as a whole. So the ruling has been made. He's going to get those minutes which are given. Please, if you got anything, go back to the land. Thank you. Over to Honorable.
Long live the Chair.
How many are those minutes?
Minutes.
You're starting now.
Honorable Mantashe.
Sit down,
Honorable
Uncle
Mantashe,
Kwete.
you cannot,
Uncle
you cannot
Kwete.
strike without being recognized. Please. Honorable
Why was the clock not stopped?
Even with the new mic, we cannot hear him.
Okay.
Hey, Kwete, shut up.
Thank you. All right.
We cannot hear him, Chair.
I was saying,
Please say something this time.
the employment.
Honorable Manye, there's another point of order.
Okay.
Chief Whip of the
One more
opposition.
extra again. Make it 5.
Official.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My hand has been up for quite a while. Thank you for finally recognizing me. The first point that I want to make, Chair, is that in terms of Rule 57 on a point of order, the point of order needs to be raised at the time when the transgression occurs. So the members who did not hear the Honourable Manye should have stood up at the point when they couldn't hear him and not wait for 10 minutes for him to continue with his speech. But I will respect the fact that you made a ruling and we will challenge it. The actual reason why I'm standing, Honourable Chair, is in terms of Rule 40, and I want you to please read it with Rule 41, and that is with regards to gross disorderly conduct, and specifically Rule 40F. When members act in any other way that seriously, to the serious detriment of the dignity, decorum, and orderly procedure of the House, read with Rule 41, which is where members are ordered to leave the chamber. I would like to ask you, what we've seen over the last while, over the last few minutes at least, was gross disorderly conduct in this House. And I would like to ask you to consider Rule 41, to ask those members who are responsible for that to leave the House if they continue with this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip of the TA. But you know very well the very same rules of the point of order is that when a ruling has been made, no other point of order can be raised on the same issue which is raised. So I'll allow Honorable Manye to continue with her speech. Thank you.
You should have raised the point when the issue was happening, not now.
Continue, wena.
Procedure, Manye, ubeka ngokwakho. Kuba man. Kuba mfondini.
Kwete, this is not an ANC meeting.
The
Keep
point
quiet.
I was making
Honorable
is
Mantashe,
that
you
if
cannot
this...
speak without being recognized, please.
Kwete.
The point I was making is that if Mr. Ramaphosa was serious about transformation, there was an opportunity presented in the 6th administration where Employment Equity Act was passed somewhere around May 2022 by the 6th administration parliament. It got promulgated in May 2023. And then from there, and then from there it was never implemented. And it was just, it's been passed with all those amendments, just to get the votes. After the votes, it also stalled. It's only now in January that this act is now going to be unleashed. This just shows that Mr. Ramaphosa is not serious about transformation. We have an NDP here, a carefully crafted plan, poorly implemented, this NDP. It has missed all targets. It doesn't matter which target you look at, it has missed. So we're sitting here with a government that has got a radar that is off course. If we look at, for instance, the issue of employment target, the NDP said by 2030 would have reached unemployment of 6%. Where are we now? On the expanded definition, we're sitting at 41%. The 2030 on the poverty eradication, it said by 2030 we'll have zero poverty. We'll have eradicated it to zero. Where are we now? We're at 40%. When are we going to get to zero in the next 5 years? 2030 said we're going to reduce inequality. We've got the most embarrassing situation in this country, that the inequality under Mr. Ramaphosa is even worse than in apartheid days. Serious problem. This so-called GNU, if it was a GNU, it would have included the traditional leaders, it would have included all those people, but it excluded them. This is what the MK Party is going to do on land expropriation. We will table a private member's bill. We will table a private member's bill to do two things: expropriation without compensation, number one. Number two, we're going to push back that date of 19 June 1913 to 6 April 1652, when Jan van Riebeeck set foot here. That's what we're going to do. South Africa will shift in terms of its global relations. We will move away from the West and associate more with the BRICS. On higher education, we will make sure that we have a decolonized higher education for all. We will support the debt cancellation program that is being proposed here. We will cut out NSFAS as a middleman and make sure that government pays directly to the institutions concerned. We will ensure that there's parliament sovereignty, so that when parliament makes a decision, you don't have courts second-guessing what parliament has said.
Are you charging Dudu?
We reiterate our call from our Commander General, His Excellency President Zuma, the founding president of the MK Party, that all progressive forces must unite so that we can defeat the monster. Mandla!
Dololo content. Dololo
Waste of 2 minutes.
All right, honorable members, I think that the speaker's list has been concluded. The speaker's list has been concluded.
It's a ruling. It's a ruling. We have ruled on that.
No, thank you very much, House Chair, President Ramaphosa, Deputy President Mashatile, ladies and gentlemen, fellow South Africans. I think the most consequential moment of our debate is when the leader of an organization that occupies the far right of the ideological spectrum of the political parties represented here in Parliament makes the following acknowledgement: that the Freedom Charter is indeed the seminal document that should guide the South Africa we want. And he goes further to make the point that it could be a foundational basis of our discussion in the mooted national dialogue. I want to further also acknowledge the most compelling and cogent explication of the achievements of the ANC as articulated by Honorable Dr. Hlophe, especially on key matrices in relation to social indicators. But he goes further to attempt to decouple the victories and the achievements of the ANC between the period 2009 to 2019 and apportion the victories to an individuals and the setback to an organization. I think this at best is a misrepresentation and at worst is duplicitous. And I want to say to Honorable Malema, in his predictable quest to discredit the SONA, he uses the NDP and the MTDP interchangeably. They are indeed interrelated but distinct. They are distinct in the following sense. The NDP's Vision 2030 has a long-time horizon. It is also outcomes-based, and it's also aspirational. The MTDP, on the other side, has got a 3-year cycle that is output-based, and it also attracts significant resources, and also has got clear timelines and also clear targets, and embedded in that, it is an overarching framework for monitoring and evaluation. So essentially what the Honorable Malema has done is to commit the cardinal sin from a conceptual outlook point of view. And I want to say the following to Honorable Trolip. When he described the SONA as delusional, Honorable Ndlela makes the point that indeed this is a failed state. Honorable Mautwe makes the point that these are hollow promises. I want to counsel the House that for us to have a decent and matured conversation, familiarity with the facts is a minimum requirement. And I want to repudiate this statement by saying the following. So first is that the SONA itself admits that there are significant shortcomings. It makes the point that we have a growth problem, and it also makes the point that the fact that 28 million people receive social grant out of a total population of 62 million, and the expanded unemployment is sitting at 43%, is an exceptional indictment on a sitting government. And then it does posit that we are putting forward a growth of 3% as our level of ambition. And that is driven by the facts as the Bureau of Economic Research from Stellenbosch has articulated or formulated a model. An economic model is a simplification of the economy that is meant to explain economic behavior. And it's made of a set of variables and a set of quantitative terms that essentially speak to each other and are interdependent. And it makes the point that if we're to continue on the path of the OV, we are likely going to achieve GDP growth of anything between 3.5% and 5%. But it will be a height of folly for President Ramaphosa to stand before the country and promise a 5% economic growth by the end of the term. Why is that the case? Because the reality is the following. Between the years 2005 and 2011, average GDP was 3.4%. 2012 to 2019, 1.9%. 2019 to 2023, 0.3%. As I stand before you, the projection is that it's likely going to be 0.8%, and over the medium term is going to be 1.9%. So you can't put forward an ambition that we know it's highly improbable that we are going to achieve. But you must also determine the flow. What is that flow? We accept that the economic growth must outpace the rate of population growth. And anything less than the rate of population growth understates what essentially are the requirements. And hence we arrive at a 3% ambition over the period of the term. And then we propose the following interventions. The first one is that the NDP suggests that the levels of gross fixed capital formation, which is a proxy for investment, should be at 30% of GDP. As I stand before you, that number is sitting at 14.9%. And 70% of that is private sector, 18% of that is public sector, and then the remainder is the SOE. So we need to accelerate that investment. For us to achieve those targets, it must grow by 2.1, we must invest 2.1 trillion rands per annum to achieve that target. And that's why the 940 billion that the president refers to is just a fiscal injection. You need to design bespoke financing instrument that will tap into the liquidity of the private sector and ensure that you provide the sufficient guardrails to protect the investments of the private sector. And hence we talk about innovative financing instrument to drive this agenda. And we are going to classify infrastructure as an asset class so that we are able to crowd in private sector investment. I want to say to Honorable McPherson that it appears that your relationship with the truth is that of hostility and antagonism. So the agenda of the Infrastructure South Africa, the investment book, was generated during the 6th administration. I think the decent thing that you can say is that you want to accelerate the pace of implementation. And then the third area of intervention is around water. So we accept that there are commercial elements in water investments and then there are social elements. You just need to look at the interventions we made working with the private sector, the Lebalelo Water Users Association, the Valga Magara, a combination of private sector and public sector investment, and we're able to roll out this investment. On the electricity front, we make the point that the state sovereign balance sheet is weak. The ESCOM balance sheet has been eroded. We need to design instruments that helps us to ensure that there's accelerated private sector investment. We need to modernize and grow the transmission by over 14,000 kilometers in the next 10 years. We need about 450 billion rands. We have designed an instrument, President. We'll be introducing that instrument to the country in the next 5 weeks, and we're going to use that instrument as a template. We'll take it to Transnet, we'll take it to all SOEs so that we are able to drive this infrastructure going forward. On the freight logistics side, we've got a baseline of 149 million tons per annum. Our target for the year is 170 million tons, and by 2030 we want to reach 250 million tons. We have decided that we must prioritize specific corridor. The Northern Cape Saldanha corridor, which carries iron ore and manganese, the Northern corridor, which carries coal and chrome, the Gauteng Durban corridor, which carries automotive and general freight. And then we say we need to make an investment in relation to the capacity of local government. Ring fence both the electricity and water functions of municipalities. President, I'm happy to announce to you that we have already started in Limpopo, as Premier Ramathuba has indicated. We are starting with Maruleng, we are doing Tabazimbi, we are doing Molemole, we are doing a number of municipalities in the Free State, we are in Malutia Pufong, we are moving into Ditsobotla in the northwest, we are in Gauteng, in Mfuleni. So we have started with this work of ensuring that we are able to design instruments that are able to drive this agenda going forward. I want to make this point in relation to what I refer to as the ultra-right lunatic fringe in this country that seeks to undermine the transformation project. So they use expropriation as a scarecrow. It's a smokescreen. Their fundamental grievance is the scale and pace of the transformation project. They've been forum shopping and now they've found an ally. They are detonating the nuclear options to ensure that they undermine the economy of this country so that there's a groundswell of social discontent that will unseat this government. I want to say that we are determined to protect the gains of the democratic project. We will go explain ourselves to the allies and articulate the vision of a South Africa that we want, that the transformation project is indeed irreversible. We are on the correct path, Comrade President. We will not be bullied. Thank you very much.
All right, honorable members, will you please take your seats? I would like to really appreciate the robust debate which you had for the past 2 days, of which all the political parties were given the chance to debate the State of the Nation address. I think that the President has listened carefully. He'll be able to respond to it tomorrow. But towards the end of this sitting, there were serious violations of the rules of the House. The first one was the issue of the participation of the people from the public gallery. According to our rules, they are very clear that the people from the gallery cannot participate in the proceedings of the House. So I think that as we are moving forward, when we invite people to come to Parliament, we must accordingly advise them about the rules which they should observe, because they tend to be disruptive. But the worst part was the issue of the violation of Rule 38 and 40, whereby it's very clear that when a presiding officer is speaking, the person who's on the podium must take a seat. So that violation was done. Yeah. I'm going to refer that matter to the relevant house so that the relevant house can deal with that issue. Because it cannot be allowed that we have the rules of the house and they get violated like the way it has done here. So without further ado, really the speakers list has been concluded. This brings us to the end of the speakers list. The President will reply to the debate tomorrow. That concludes the business of the day and the joint sittings adjourned. Can we allow the procession to leave first when we're still standing in our seat? Thank you.